Who's Bob?
Do you remember when nearly every Hollywood star had a cigarette in hand? Back then, it wasn't shocking, it was style. But some actresses smoked far more than others. And in today's video, we look at 10 who made smoking a signature, and sometimes a tragedy. 1. Lucille Ball. Yes, beloved Lucille Ball was a lifelong smoker. Despite her wholesome image on I Love Lucy, Ball smoked heavily off camera, with some reports saying she puffed through multiple packs a day. Smoking was even part of her off-screen routine during rehearsals and writing sessions. She was rarely photographed smoking in public, as she tried to preserve her clean image for audiences. But those close to her described a constant haze of smoke around Lucy behind the scenes. Some colleagues even recalled how smoke would hang in the air during rehearsals, and Ball reportedly refused to give up cigarettes, even when advised to by doctors. She later developed chronic health problems, including heart issues. Ball underwent open-heart surgery in 1989 and died shortly after, at age 77. While her smoking wasn't widely publicized during her prime, it was well known in the industry. 2. Tallulah Bankhead. Outspoken, eccentric, and wildly charismatic, Tallulah Bankhead was a chain smoker known for her gravelly voice and rebellious spirit. She reportedly smoked up to 150 cigarettes a day, a staggering number even by old Hollywood standards. Bankhead embraced excess in all things, smoking, drinking, and living fast. Her voice became so hoarse and raspy that it turned into her trademark. She even joked that cigarettes were her only reliable co-stars. Friends described her as walking into a room with a plume of smoke trailing behind, and she was rarely seen without a cigarette in hand. She often joked about her vices and leaned into her persona as a wild woman of the stage and screen. She died in 1968 of pneumonia, complicated by emphysema and malnutrition, aged 66, her health devastated by years of smoking. 3. Jean Harlow. Known as the original blonde bombshell, Jean Harlow was not only a style icon, but also a frequent smoker, though she died young. At only 26, reports and biographies note her fondness for cigarettes, and on set, she was often seen with a cigarette between takes. Studio photographers occasionally airbrushed out cigarettes from her publicity stills to protect her youthful image. But in private, she smoked with ease and regularity, sometimes to calm her nerves before a take. In those days, there was little concern for health consequences, and smoking was considered fashionable, even elegant. Though her untimely death in 1937 was due to kidney failure and not directly related to smoking, it's likely the constant stress, overwork, and lifestyle habits, including cigarettes, didn't help her already fragile health. 4. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner's smoky voice wasn't just an accident. She was a heavy smoker for most of her life. Described as earthy and rebellious, Gardner smoked constantly, even in interviews and during downtime between scenes. She believed smoking helped her relax and concentrate, and friends said she would light a cigarette before answering any difficult question, using it as both a pause and a shield. She often smoked in bed, on balconies, and during travel, treating cigarettes like an essential part of her day. Unfortunately, the habit caught up with her. She suffered a stroke in the 1980s that left her partially paralyzed and in declining health. And although she lived quietly in her final years, the effects of smoking lingered. Gardner passed away in 1990 at the age of 67, still considered one of the great beauties of classic cinema. 5. Judy Garland. Behind Judy Garland's radiant smile and golden voice, was a life of hardship, and smoking became one of her many coping mechanisms. Studio executives encouraged her to smoke as a teenager to suppress her appetite and control her weight, a common but tragic practice in those days. Garland became a lifelong smoker, often using it to deal with stress and anxiety. And by her 20s, she was already combining cigarettes with pills, uppers to wake her, downers to help her sleep. She would sometimes smoke through interviews and backstage moments, her fingers stained with nicotine and her voice marked by exhaustion. Combined with emotional turmoil and substance dependency, it severely affected her health and vitality. She died in 1969 at just 47 years old, her body exhausted long before its time, and her life marked by the toll of Hollywood's harshest pressures. 6. Marlene Dietrich. German-born screen legend Marlene Dietrich was a symbol of style, mystery, and rebellion, and her ever-present cigarette was part of that carefully crafted image. Whether in a tuxedo or a sequined gown, Dietrich often posed with a cigarette, making it an extension of her powerful presence. She smoked both on-screen and off, often using a long cigarette holder for added flair and drama. Her smoking habit began early in her career and lasted for decades, reportedly consuming multiple packs a day. Even as her health declined, Dietrich continued smoking privately during her later years in Paris, where she lived in seclusion. Friends said she became frail and reclusive, suffering from various ailments worsened by years of tobacco use. She passed away in 1992, at the age of 90, having lived long, but with a body deeply affected by a lifetime of smoking. 7. Lauren Bacall. With her sultry voice and cool demeanor, Lauren Bacall practically made smoking look glamorous, especially in her unforgettable debut in To Have and Have Not, where she lit up the screen and a cigarette beside Humphrey Bogart. Bacall later admitted that cigarettes were used on set to mature her image and add sophistication, especially as she was only 19 at the time of filming. Off-screen, she became a regular smoker, often photographed mid-drag at parties or between takes. The habit stayed with her for decades, and she struggled with it even as public attitudes began to change. Though she eventually quit smoking, Bacall experienced chronic health issues later in life, including a stroke. She passed away in 2014 at the age of 89. Her legacy forever tied to that smoky allure that defined both her voice and her screen persona. 8. Barbara Stanwyck. Barbara Stanwyck, the queen of film noir, was known for her intense performances and commanding screen presence, and she was also known behind the scenes as a habitual smoker. Co-stars and directors often remarked that she would light one cigarette after another, especially between takes, where she used smoking to steady her nerves. Her voice, deep and resonant, became one of her trademarks, and was no doubt shaped by years of tobacco use. Stanwyck was intensely private, rarely discussing her personal life, but her addiction to smoking was no secret to those who worked with her. Later in life, she suffered from chronic bronchitis and cardiovascular issues, both likely linked to her long-term habit. She died in 1990 at the age of 82, leaving behind a legacy as one of the most respected and enduring actresses of the Golden Age, albeit one whose health bore the cost of a lifetime of smoking. 9. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford's image was meticulously polished, but her smoking habit was well known both inside and outside the studio system. A lifelong smoker, Crawford was often seen lighting up between takes or during press interviews, and it was said she smoked at least 2 packs a day during the height of her career. Smoking was woven into her roles, often used to underline her intensity, sensuality, or dominance on screen. Off-camera, she continued the habit without pause, believing it helped her stay slim and focused. Over time, however, it wore her down physically. She developed health problems in her later years and was diagnosed with cancer, retreating from public life as her health declined. Joan Crawford passed away in 1977 at the age of 69, her carefully crafted image outlasting the toll that cigarettes had taken behind closed doors. 10. Bette Davis. Bette Davis was as famous for her fierce acting style as she was for her unmistakable chain smoking, which became part of her image both on screen and off. She often used cigarettes as a dramatic tool in her performances, drawing a drag just before delivering a razor-sharp line or exhaling smoke with that legendary glare. Davis reportedly smoked over 100 cigarettes a day during the peak of her career, believing it helped her keep her signature husky voice and sharp focus. Her image, cigarette in hand, eyebrows arched, became iconic across generations, but the consequences caught up with her. In later life, she suffered from multiple health issues, including breast cancer and strokes, which significantly impacted her ability to work. Bette Davis passed away in 1989 at the age of 81, her name etched in film history, even as smoking had taken its quiet toll behind the scenes. These legendary women lit up the silver screen and their cigarettes. While times have changed, their stories remind us of a different era in Hollywood. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and subscribe for more classic film history.